the Jewish kids were coming in for Hebrew school. Now, I think most of us know that our church has been the home for the Jewish Collaborative, the synagogue that's building next door. They're almost ready. But not only have they had their dinners and lighting the Shabbat candles, the Sabbath candles on Friday nights here, they have also, usually about 2 days a week, kids come here to learn Hebrew. So I was standing and watching these Jewish kids come in, and Rabbi and Gabby get ready to teach them. And I was watching that these images from last weekend in Charlottesville came to mind. Images of these angry young men carrying torches, shouting words against Jews that Nazis shouted 80 years ago. And I looked at these young kids walking into our fellowship hall, and I wondered how it could be. How could it be that these hateful things are being said and done right here in our country? Right here in our country, where many of our fathers and grandfathers went to Europe and shed blood to stop those very things from happening. And then I wondered, what is it like for our Jewish friends whom we've come to know over these last couple of years? What is it like for them to be hearing these words, seeing these things? And I wondered, what are these parents telling their children about what's happening? How do you talk to your kids about this? And then one of you shared with me a Facebook post from a friend of yours, actually from the son of a friend of yours. Your friend's a Presbyterian in one of our nearby Presbyterian churches here in North County. And her son had just joined the staff at the University of Virginia. Had been there like a week. And went to a church service last Friday night where the pastors of Charlottesville had gathered to prepare for this rally of white supremacists the next day. And this is what he wrote in his Facebook post. He wrote, "It was inspiring and absolutely beautiful to see a town come together around one another's humanity. When the service was over, we were not allowed to leave because a large portion of Ku Klux Klan members were outside the church with torches. Forced to exit through a back door, I experienced a small glimpse of the fear that minority folks encounter." After reading his Facebook post, I found myself trying to imagine what it's like to be a person of color now. When you think, boy, are we reliving the 50s and the 60s all over again with threats of white supremacists all around? I don't think for a minute that anyone in this room would ever carry a torch at a rally like that. None of us would ever say anything like that. None of us believe in the supremacy of the white race. So how do we respond? Charlottesville is like 3,000 miles away, and yet it's really not that far away at all. What do we do? What can we do? And the Christian answer to this always sounds a little bit naive. The Christian answer is always love. Love. But it's not a naive, sentimental kind of a love. C.S. Lewis, when he talked about Christ, his image for Christ was the lion, Aslan the lion, and the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. A lion who's not a tame lion, but a fierce lion. So it's a fierce kind of a love that we're talking about. Love your neighbor as yourself, Jesus said, and then he made it really hard because he told the parable that said your neighbor's pretty much anybody and everybody. So love everyone. That's not sentimental. That can be hard. We're doing a series on movies, and this is not today's movie, but there's a great movie from an even greater book, To Kill a Mockingbird, and you've probably all read it and seen it. Atticus Finch, who's the Southern lawyer, is telling his daughter Scout, and he says to her, "If you can learn a simple trick, Scout, you'll get along a lot better with all kinds of folks. You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb inside of his skin and walk around in it." Surely that's part of what love is actually trying to climb inside someone else's skin and walk around it, to see what they see, to try to feel what they feel. And in the aftermath of Charlottesville, maybe that's what we can do. We who are followers of friends of Jesus, we can try to do that. We can move on. We can just sort of say, well, that's the crisis of the week. There will be another one next week, and move on, and that's easier and it's safer. But I think every once in a while we just have to stop. To stop and try to climb into somebody else's skin. And think about what it's like to be the parents of these young Jewish kids that are learning Hebrew right in this room. What's it like to have to tell them about what they've seen and what they're hearing? What's it like to be a person of color when people are walking our streets with weapons and torches saying that only whites belong here? That's one place to start. It's just to climb into their skin and just see how it feels, see what it's like. That's before it even gets really hard. When Jesus says, love your enemies, love those who oppose you. What's it like to be inside the skin of those angry young men? Why are they so angry? Something I learned from marriage counseling, but it applies here, is that anger never comes alone. Anger always comes with another feeling. You're never just angry. You're angry because you're hurt. You're angry because you're discouraged. You're angry because someone lied about you. You're angry because you're depressed. Anger never comes alone. And if you find someone who's angry, try to think, what's the other feeling that goes with that anger? What's the feeling that's provoking the anger? It's easier to love somebody who's angry when you're aware of what that other feeling is, because anger never comes alone. Atticus Finch might be misleading us a bit and saying it's a simple trick. It's not simple. But God does not ask us to love our neighbors. He tells us. He commands it. And God will empower us to do what God commands us to do. If God commands us to love our neighbors, then at some level, we must be able to do it with God's help. So now on today's sermon, which actually is connected, as I hope you'll see. We're continuing our series on faith and film. And the scripture for today are these familiar words from Paul's letter to the Corinthians, the 13th chapter. Many of us, I suspect, had this read at our weddings, but it really wasn't written for weddings. It was written for all of us followers of Jesus. Words about love. So hear now the word of God. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part. Then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, love abide, these three. And the greatest of these is love. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Pray with me. Lord, may the words of my mouth, the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, you who are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So these 3 weeks we're looking at movies and the faith dimension of movies, and today is CPC at Petco Park to see the Padres Day, so we had to have a baseball movie. And one of the best baseball movies ever is called Moneyball. Anybody seen Moneyball? A few of us have seen it? Okay. Well, Moneyball is a 2011 film. Stars Brad Pitt as Billy Bean, who is a baseball player who came out of a San Diego high school, was a bonus baby, was a great prospect, made it to the majors, but never quite made it to be a great player everyone hoped and expected he would be. So now he's the general manager of the Oakland Athletics. And the general manager is not the manager on the field who decides who's going to play. The general manager is the one who puts the team together, who decides which are the players we're going to sign, which are the players we're going to trade. The general manager decides who those 25 men will be on this baseball team. And the Oakland Athletics are a small market baseball team. They don't have a lot of money. And what happens in Oakland and other small market teams, they get really good players, and then the rich teams come in and buy them. So that's happened before the 2002 season as this movie begins. The Athletics have had a pretty good year, but three of their very best players have been plucked by the Yankees and by other rich teams. Now, Billy Beane is divorced with a lovely daughter. And she's charmingly played in this scene, where we'll see his daughter. They're in a music store. Billy's with his daughter. His daughter lives with his former wife, who is remarried to somebody who doesn't do sports, clearly not interested in sports. But here he is with his daughter in a music store as she shows him she's been learning the guitar.
It's too much, yeah, it's a lot to be something I'm not. I'm full out of love, 'cause I just can't get enough. Yeah, I'm just a little bit caught in the middle. Life is a maze and love is a riddle. I don't know where to go, can't do it alone. I've tried and I don't know why. I'm just a little girl lost in the moment. I'm so scared, but I don't show it. I can't figure it out. It's bringing me down, I know. I've got to let it go and just enjoy the show. The sun is hot.
So there's clearly a lot of affection between Billy and his daughter, and yet in a difficult, challenging situation, of course. And that's how the movie begins. You see his relationships, but then it gets to baseball. And here you see Billy with a man named Peter Brand. It's the photograph. You'll see it in a minute. By chance, Billy meets Peter, who's working for another baseball team. But Peter is an economics major, graduate of Yale University, who has a different approach to how you put a team together. Peter is convinced that baseball is dominated by medieval thinking, he says. Medieval thinking. That this emphasis on runs batted in and home runs, the statistics that we all know about, if you're a baseball fan, those are not the statistics that really show what the value of a player is. Now, so there's Brad Pitt playing Billy Beane on the left, and on the right is that Yale grad who does not look at all like a baseball player, played by Jonah Hill. But he says there are other statistics that tell you more, like OPS. You all know what OPS is, right? No, you got to look it up. OPS is on base plus slugging. So what's your percentage of times you get on base? And your slugging percentage is how often you might hit a double or triple or homer rather than just a single. So it's a statistic you have to work hard to get. And Peter Brand is convinced that baseball has it all wrong, that the way they approach the statistics are just wrong. Go ahead and cue up the next slide. So Billy hires Peter to work for his team. And here we're going to see Peter is going to make his case to Billy Beane about how you should put your team together using statistics. Maybe a little
So
louder.
using this equation in the upper left right here, I'm projecting that we need to win at least 99 games in order to make it to the postseason. We need to score at least 814 runs in order to win those games and allow no more than 645 runs.
What's this?
This is the code that I've written for our year-to-year projections. This is building in all the intelligence that we have to project players.
Okay.
It's about getting things down to one number. Using stats the way we read them, we'll find value in players that nobody else can see. People are overlooked for a variety of biased reasons and perceived flaws. Age, appearance, personality. Bill James and mathematics cut straight through that. Billy, of the 20,000 notable players for us to consider, I believe that there's a championship team of 25 people that we can afford, because everyone else in baseball undervalues them. Like an island of misfit toys.
So if you didn't follow all those numbers, that's okay, you're not supposed to. Because it's just very complicated, all these mathematical formulas for which he comes up with one number that describes the value of a player to a team. And he's convinced that the players that we think of, the good players are good, but there are a lot of players that aren't known as good, that have other skills and other abilities that aren't recognized by baseball, but they're measured in these statistics. And if you take those players and put them together, they won't cost you very much. You won't have to pay them very much because they're not known as the best players in the game. If you want these great players, you have to go buy them. And Oakland can't buy them. They don't have enough money. But you can put these players together who aren't known for being all that great, but they actually are better than anyone realizes. And at the end he says, they're like an island of misfit toys. I think that's going back to like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So it's called sabermetrics, and it's all about the math, Peter says. And Billy Beane buys into it. He says, but this approach to baseball threatens everybody who's a part of the game. The scouts on his team who are trying to tell them which players they should get. The manager on the field is disgusted that he's being given these players that nobody knows anything about. So nobody can believe that Billy Beane is turning away from like a century of baseball wisdom and putting together his team using numbers, using math. It goes against everything everyone thinks. And so he does that. He acquires a whole bunch of players nobody else is interested in for a lot less money, using the math, the statistics that this unknown guy has given to him. Now, you know, we're sort of familiar with this. This is the way the world works, right? The world works on numbers. I mean, the world cares about what your SAT score is, what your sales figures are, what your salary is. You know, we measure things in numbers. We measure ourselves with numbers. So really, numbers run the world. Baseball is just finally catching up. And at first, this looks like a disaster, though. The Oakland Athletics are terrible. They look like a bunch of misfit toys, and they're not playing very well. But, you know, over time, the law of averages takes over. And sure enough, they start to produce runs, and runs start to produce wins, and they start winning. And in fact, they have a 20-game winning streak. They set the record for the longest winning streak in the history of the American League. And they win their division. They win 103 games. They win 103 games by paying their team their salary $44 million. Now, you know, it'd be nice if all of us together could make $44 million, granted. But compared to the New York Yankees, that year, their payroll was $125 million. And the Athletics won 24 more games than the Yankees won. So this is like a genius thing. This gets everybody in baseball's attention. So the Athletics move into the playoffs. They play the Minnesota Twins. But you know, the law of averages plays out over a long season, but it doesn't necessarily play out over a 5-game series. And the Athletics lose to the Twins in 5 games, and they're out of the playoffs. But still, they garnered the attention of everyone in baseball, including the Boston Red Sox. And here, in this photograph, you see the owner of the Boston Red Sox sitting at Fenway Park in the owner's box, and he's talking to Billy Beane. He's flown Billy Beane in to talk to him about his approach to baseball, to talk to him about becoming the general manager of his team, because he's seen what Billy Beane has done with $40 million compared to what the Yankees did with $120 million. So they have this conversation. And at the end of the conversation, the owner takes a piece of paper out of his pocket and he pushes it across the table to Billy Beane. Billy Beane says, "What's this?" He said, "Well, I want you to come and be the general manager of the Boston Red Sox. I want you to win the first World Series in Boston since 1918. And that's my offer. That's how much I'm willing to pay you." You can cue up the next one now. And you don't see what's on that piece of paper. You don't see it. But But Billy Bean goes back to Oakland. He's got an offer in his pocket. And he's trying to decide what to do.
Okay, let me tell you what a data scientist is not. A data scientist is not a programmer, and not a Java programmer who knows how to do. Okay, many people are billing themselves as data scientists because they have certain technical
I think
skills.
we've got extra sound in here.
That's not a data scientist. That's someone who maybe knows how to run Hadoop, knows how to integrate data, knows how to run it, unless they also understand some of these discovery techniques, these algorithms. In my mind, they don't qualify as data scientists. Now look, having said that, many software developers
So actually this scene is silent until Billy Bean is driving along,
business intelligence.
puts the CD in that his daughter has made of her singing that song.
What they think is important.
And the daughter says to him, "Hey Dad, this is the song you asked me to record. Let me know if you change your mind and stay in California." Because actually he's already accepted the offer of the Boston Red Sox. "Let me know if you change your mind and stay in California. If not, you're a really great dad." And then she starts to sing. Try the sound now.
Skills. They need some technical skill, they need some domain knowledge, but they need this.
And she sings, "I'm just a little bit caught in the middle. Life is a maze and love is a riddle. I don't know where to go. Can't do it alone. I've tried. And I don't know why. I'm just a little girl, lost in the moment. I'm so scared, but I don't show it. I can't figure it out. It's bringing me down. I gotta let it go and just enjoy the show." And you see the closing on Brad Pitt as he wipes away a tear from his eye as he's listening to his daughter sing. And that's the end of the movie. And then there's a black screen. And the black screen, words on the black screen tell you, Billy Bean turned down the Boston Red Sox offer of $12,500,000 to stay in Oakland as their general manager. 2 years later, the Boston Red Sox win the World Series with another person who had the same method that Billy Bean and Peter Brand used in Oakland. They used the same ideas, won a World Series with it, and now most teams in baseball use some form of this whole statistical thing. But that's the end of the movie. Billy Bean turns down the Red Sox offer of $12.5 million. And he turns it down because he can't bear to leave his daughter, who's caught in the middle. Life is a maze, love is a riddle. I'm a little girl lost in the moment, I'm so scared and I don't show it. You know, this whole movie tells us it's about the numbers. It's about the math. That's what measures us. That's what tells us who we are, how good we are. It's all about numbers. It's all about numbers. That's how you win. That's how you get to where you want to go. It's about the math. It's about statistics. It's about the numbers. And then at the very end of the movie, the most important decision of all, which has maybe the biggest number of all on it, 12.5 million, it's not about the numbers at all. It's not about the numbers at all. It's all about love. In the end, whatever happens in Charlottesville, whatever happens in Carlsbad, whatever happens in your home or my home, what matters most is love. It's an amazing thing. With $12,500,000 on the line, Billy Bean got it right. With Christ's help, we can get it right too. Pray with me. Lord, it is indeed love that bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love that never ends. We know it. Help us to live it. for Christ's sake and the world's sake, and yes, for our own sakes too. Amen.